You were a different character in the mind of each person.
This one. Video by Chris Williamson, who, by the way, has Lyme's disease. So if you think of it, you can send a prayer up or something.
You were a different character in the mind of each person who knows you because their impression of you is made of the bare bones of what they've seen, fleshed out by their knowledge of
Hmm.
themselves. That's from Gwynder Bogle. So the lonely chapter
I think it's Lyme's disease, anyways. Don't quote me on that. You may have to look it up. But he did a video on his health stuff he had going on.
has another perspective to it, which is as you grow, you don't fit in with your friends, but this means that they don't fit in with you either.
Mm.
This causes a reaction from their side too. The hardest part of changing yourself isn't just improving your own habits, it's escaping the people who keep handing you your old costume.
Well, there's an element to that where I don't know if it's necessarily entirely true. It depends what type of friends you have. Where I think the idea would be that if you're a policeman, policemen want to get better at policing, right? So if you that's the area you want to strive in, choose the right type of friends, and they will want to grow with you. If you're in an AA meeting or something like that, you're in a place where all of these people they want to grow in this particular area. If you're a part of a church, again, this is an area where people are striving for moral progression. They want to get better. And because you choose that type of environment, that type of community, I think those types of people, I don't know if you'll necessarily outgrow, well, you might outgrow them to some extent, but also they will want to be growing with you. They'll want to be participating in that type of thing. So it might depend who you choose as friends.
Others don't just
This guy, for the record, I think at one point he was on Love Island, which is some sort of show. So the type of friends he would have had might not have been the most wholesome or, whatever. They might have been more like the scene type of people, like I don't know.
remember who you were, they enforce it, which is why reinvention so often feels like trying to break out
I do agree with that though. Like the people you're around, you almost never know to what extent they kind of inform the person you are, the decisions you make. That's like a huge part of it. If you want to get better, sometimes you have to choose a better place to be and better friends to be with.
of a prison that you can't see. That psychologists call this dynamic an object relation. So
Hmm.
when people interact with you, they're not engaging with you in your full living complexity. They're dealing with the version of you that exists in their head, a simplified character built from fragments
Interesting.
of memory and colored by their own projections. In object relations theory, an object isn't a thing, it's just a internalized image of another person. We don't just carry people as they are, we carry a mental sketch, which is why if you make a radical change, you'll usually meet resistance. Your
That's a very interesting notion. Yeah. So people on some level. I think there's a difference to be had between a notion of a person who um genuinely cares about you and a person who likes something about you. And if they like that thing about you and you change that thing, the thing that they like about you, the reaction to that I think is sometimes adverse because it's almost this like maybe implied contract where no, I like that thing about you and you change that thing and now I don't like you anymore, rather than someone who like genuinely just cares about you as a person and will care about you regardless of what you do or what you become, right? They'll always be like at least trying to help you even if they don't agree with what you're doing.
transformation destabilizes the representation that the people around you are attached to.
Hmm.
So they try to nudge you back into the familiar role that they know. Charles Horton Cooley called this the looking glass self. We come
Hmm.
to know ourselves by seeing our reflection in the eyes of other people. And if those mirrors keep reflecting the old you, it's hard to step into a new one. In social psychology, self verification theory shows that people prefer interactions that confirm what they already believe about
Hmm.
themselves and about you. If you
There's the element where like I guess this kind of defies the notion of it, but I try almost not to describe myself to any great degree, because there's this element where, like, if you describe who you are as a person to people, if you talk about yourself a lot to other people, you almost lock yourself into something and you pigeonhole yourself in a way where you can't become the person you want to be. You can't do the things you want to do because you're kind of well, you've said that you're a good listener, right? I think I'm a really good listener, and now you feel obliged to adhere to that. You said that, oh, I think I have a really good sense of self, or that I'm very self-aware. Like now you feel like you have to play into that a lot. So it's almost one of those things where, yeah, you can maybe, I'm not saying never describe yourself, but maybe allow yourself some room to allow a degree of variability in that by not talking about yourself so much, not trying to describe who you are as a person so much.
Disrupt this script. You introduce friction. In this one study, participants with poor self-image chose to interact with people who criticized them rather than praised them, meaning that even people with low self-esteem often prefer others to treat them in ways that confirm their pessimistic self-view, because negative consistency feels safer than optimistic unfamiliarity.
Mm,
We need a training manual for the new hire, ASAP.
mm, mm.
Hey, I'm gonna be home late again. Yeah.
That's like some sort of AI
Glad I caught
gobbledygook.
you
Hey,
before you
need the
left.
training manuals?
Yeah.
Check it. Already done. Did with Scribe in minutes. Every step is recorded automatically. There's no typing, no screenshots. You just do the process once, and Scribe creates the guide for me.
Okay, maybe it's not AI.
If that is true for how we see ourselves, imagine how much other people cling to their picture of you.
Mm.
Before his conversion, St. Augustine was notorious for chasing pleasure, indulgence, and distraction. And after his dramatic turn to faith,
This is
he's
like something. Like I'll go this far with regards to my statement of religion. I'm not Catholic, and it's something that I've maybe regretted that the denomination I'm in did not study the early church fathers as much as I would maybe have liked. Like in school or anything like that, we didn't really we studied some of it um, up to a point, but I maybe wish we would have gotten more into the church fathers and stuff like that. It's kind of a, like, I don't know if I believe to some extent in the, like, authority of, like, apostolic succession, but it's an interesting type of field of study, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to study, I think. I wish we'd have done more of that.
struggled to convince old friends that he was no longer the same man. They resisted not just out of skepticism, but because
There's actually a weird parallel to that in the personage of Paul. Like you have, like, we think of him as the guy in the Bible who wrote all of these epistles, and it was just a champion of the faith. But like it's one of those things where, like, I don't know how late into his life it was, but he was persecuting the church with zealous fervor for a very long time, until, well, I say for a long time. I don't know how long actually, but he was smiting people in no uncertain terms. He was, yeah, like I said, he was quite zealous at it. So, like, to go from that and to try and convince people that there might be a little bit of a parallel there, where he was trying to convince people that he wasn't that guy anymore, I guess, or he would almost have to try and do that.
the new Augustine didn't fit the story they had of him. In Fitzgerald's novel, Jay Gatsby began life as James Gatz, a
Hmm.
poor farm boy desperate to escape his origins. He tried to reinvent himself into a dazzling millionaire, but no matter how hard he
Yeah.
works at it, the people around him reduce him
Uh,
back to the upstart
so, like,
outside.
I'm assuming that's from, like, The Great Gatsby. I've heard of that. I have to look that up sometime. Jay Gatsby. Gad. Huh. The titular character of Scott's 1923. The Great The Great Gatsby. Huh. It's an enigmatic Nova rich millionaire. I should read that sometime. Sounds interesting.
His reinvention collapsed
I'd heard of the book. I never read it though.
under the weight of their collective refusal to update their vision of him. Nelson Mandela started as a fiery revolutionary against apartheid, and when he walked out of prison after 27 years, his followers expected him to emerge hardened and vengeful, and instead he embodied reconciliation. But that reinvention only truly stuck once he stepped onto the world stage, far beyond the circles that had known the old Mandela. David Bowie began as a struggling musician in London.
It's actually a quote from the Bible that goes along this. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talk about scripture. No, I'm not sorry. You know what? Suck it up, okay? I'm a Christian. You're gonna have to deal with it. There's a quote from the Bible that I think Jesus says actually is maybe a prophet has respect everywhere but in his own town. It's one of those things where like the people who knew you growing up, they're always gonna maybe have this certain type of idea of who you are, and it's very hard to break that because like I think the idea was he went back to his I don't know.
Trying to make a name for himself in a conventional scene. His breakthrough was constant self-reinvention. He does Ziggy Stardust, The Thin White Duke, and tons more. But each transformation often required leaving behind one circle, one city, one audience, because the people who knew him too well couldn't help but cling to the previous Bowie. St. Paul had once been Saul, infamous for persecuting Christians with unrelenting zeal. After his conversion, he became their fiercest advocate. But many believers couldn't trust him. They couldn't stop seeing the old Saul, and it took years of travel and new communities before his new identity as Paul was accepted. And in ordinary life, this script repeats as well. The friend who quits drinking was once the reliable partner in crime, but then newfound sobriety unsettles the group and throws everyone else's bad habits into harsh contrast. The shy colleague who becomes confident was once predictable in their quietness, so their assertiveness now reads as arrogance. The young adult who comes home at Christmas was once an awkward teenager. However, no matter how much they've grown, the family still insists on infantilizing them. The podcaster who had a shaved head for 5 years gets a ton of stick for having a perm after he grows his hair out, despite his curls totally being natural and suiting his face and being quite a masculine haircut if you think about it for a while.
That's a good joke. Oh, come on.
Oh, sorry, I can't give blood that day. I'm busy.
TLDR,
Losing.
many people don't like you because making positive changes is effortful to keep up with, and it's threatening to their shortcomings. So they dissuade you from doing it, which is why meaningful change so often requires escaping your environment. Change isn't just about building a new self. It's about escaping the gravitational pull of the selves that exist in other people's minds.
Yeah, that's very true. Sorry, I watched most of the video, but you can see the rest of it. I don't like the idea of watching all the video, but yeah, hardest part of changing your life. You could check this out by Chris Williamson. Interesting fellow. Interesting fellow. I think he does a lot of interviews with people. I think he's interviewed Jordan Peterson a couple of times, maybe Konstantin Kisin, yeah, a whole bunch of people.